They're out there, lurking in the vastness of space. Planets so weird, even science fiction could not foresee them. For the first time ever, scientists are discovering alien worlds beyond our solar system. Places where ice is hot and rain is made of iron. They are uncharted, unearthly, and unpredictable. And somewhere, hidden among these strange new worlds, scientists seek the greatest discoveries of all. Planets like ours, alien Earths.
35 seconds. Let's go. Storage tank press closed.
March 6, 2009.
22 seconds.
Later, GN2 pressure go.
This Delta II rocket is going through its final pre-flight check.
7.3.
Drop 1.
Engine start, 1, 0, and liftoff.
It is the start of an extraordinarily ambitious mission. The Kepler Space Observatory is hunting for planets like Earth within a region of 100,000 stars. It is the culmination of a journey that began more than a decade ago with one of the most profound scientific discoveries ever made. In 1995. Swiss astronomer Michel Mayor and his team make a routine observation of stars in the constellation Pegasus, located 50 light-years away. But the instruments show something strange. One star is violently lurching and wobbling.
What we discovered, it's one of these stars have a velocity changing with time.
What is powerful enough to disturb a star the size of our sun? Mayor offers a radical answer: a planet. But no one has ever seen a planet around another sun-like star.
Problem in detecting planets around other stars is that as a planet orbits a nearby star, that planet gets lost because of its feeble light in the glare of the very bright star.
In spite of the odds, Mayor relies on his data and is convinced the wobbles are caused by the gravitational pull of an orbiting planet.
When I read this claim from Michel Mayor, I was very skeptical. There had been many false claims of the first planet ever discovered around another star, and I thought to myself, oh boy, here we go again. So I decided to observe the star on 4 consecutive nights. And stunningly, the star was shown to wobble exactly as Michel Mayor had said.
Michel Mayor and his teammate Didier Queloz announce their discovery. It rocks the scientific community.
They had found for the first time reproducible, confirmable evidence of the existence of a planet around a sun-like star.
Officially called 51 Pegasi b, the planet is nicknamed Bellerophon in honor of the Greek hero who tamed the winged horse Pegasus. It is a planet that breaks all the rules. Bellerophon roasts in the blazing starlight at temperatures of roughly 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. It is nearly 150 times more massive than Earth and is a gas giant like Jupiter.
A gas giant is a planet made mostly of hydrogen and helium. Only the outer layers are gas,
But inside, hydrogen and helium is compressed to huge, huge, huge pressures. It doesn't resemble a gas at all.
Unlike anything found in our solar system, this is an entirely new class of planet, what scientists call a hot Jupiter.
If you go to Hawaii and see the lava flow there, that's how hot a hot Jupiter is. It's very, very hot.
The Earth is a comfortable 93 million miles away from the Sun.
These hot Jupiters are roughly 100 times closer, and so the amount of sunlight that they get is 10,000 times larger.
If this represents a star, and this a hot Jupiter is 3 to 4 stellar diameters away from the star. So that would be 1, 2, 3. This is how close a hot Jupiter would be to its star. Hot Jupiters are tidally locked. They present the same face to the star at all times, just like the moon does to Earth.
It's going to be permanent daylight on one side and permanent nighttime on the back. If I were stuck on a hot Jupiter, I'd want to be on the back side and hope that some of the heat from the front side facing the star would make its way around the back.
The variations in temperature make Bellerophon's atmosphere extremely windy. The wind howls at thousands of miles per hour, far beyond anything we could ever withstand. The heat blast guarantees water vapor cannot exist. But that doesn't mean there is no rain.
It's far too hot for water liquid clouds to form here. But instead, these clouds would be made out of iron.
Iron vapor can exist at temperatures much higher than water. And because of that, things could get a little messy.
You better have an umbrella that's pretty sturdy, because the iron is going to start coating your umbrella very rapidly and making it extremely heavy and just crush that umbrella.
The sky overhead is filled with dancing curtains of color. Charged particles from the nearby star make auroras far more extreme than the northern lights on Earth. There is something even more unique about this newly discovered world. Bellerophon orbits its sun in a blistering 4.2 days.
No self-respecting planet goes around a star in 4.2 days. None of the planets in our solar system take such a short amount of time.
For scientists, the tiny orbit challenges long-held notions of how planets form.
The fact that the planet was orbiting every 4 days was a total puzzle until one night in the middle of the night I woke up and said, well, this must be proof that planets migrate inwards. They don't stay put where they are.
The key to the puzzle is found in how planets are made.
Planets are a byproduct of star formation. When stars form, they have a disk of dust and debris around them, and out of that debris, planets form.
Much of what we know comes from Hubble Space Telescope, as it aims at regions like the Eagle Nebula. This interstellar cloud is studded with collapsing disks of dust and gas. A giant clump grows in the center of each disk. Temperatures reach a searing 18 million degrees. The same nuclear fusion that powers our sun is unleashed. The star is born. Radiation from the star generates a stellar wind that sweeps away leftover dust and debris. Some of the dust survives and remains in orbit around the newborn star. Over millions of years, the dust sticks together, forming knots that grow into asteroids, and the asteroids grow into planets. These planets migrate through the disk until they find a stable orbit. This is why Bellerophon is so close to its parent star. But one newly discovered world has found its stable orbit in a place no planet should ever go. 2001. Hubble Space Telescope is directed to an obscure star some 150 light-years away from Earth, in the constellation of Pegasus. This is the same region where Bellerophon was found 6 years earlier. Hubble is tracking another hot Jupiter, discovered by astronomer Geoff Marcy. But this one is different from Bellerophon.
You've probably heard of the planet HD 209458b. It's a terrible name.
A terrible name for a terrible place. HD 209458b has been dubbed by some as Osiris, after the Egyptian god of the dead. Osiris is over 200 times more massive than Earth. It has migrated perilously close to its sun, at a mere 4 million miles from the blazing solar surface. Osiris broils in a planetary hell. The average daily temperature on Osiris is over 2,000 degrees. Forget global warming. This is global frying, and it causes Osiris to lose an estimated 550,000 tons of air every second.
There's a leak of gas, a steady stream of hydrogen and helium, and that's making a big, huge cloud all around the planet.
Its atmosphere is bleeding into space. Scientists speculate that a colossal trail of gas spirals behind the planet for thousands of miles. Osiris presents an unprecedented opportunity for astronomers. Using Hubble, they analyze the alien planet's bloated atmosphere.
This is the absolutely first time where we could tell what is the composition of the atmosphere of an extrasolar planet.
Surprisingly, Hubble detects many of the basic chemicals needed for life. Sodium, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But Osiris is far too hot for life as we know it.
There may be other forms of life, however, that thrive on higher temperatures.
But there's no solid surface as we know it on a hot Jupiter. So this life would have to be just tiny little microbes floating around on aerosols. And on our own Earth, we have life that floats around in our atmosphere. But that life didn't start there. So life almost certainly would not exist on hot Jupiters.
Astronomers have discovered many hot Jupiters since Bellerophon was found in 1995. But conditions on these worlds rule them out as places where the drama of life can unfold. One of these gas giants is a planet that teases the rules of evolution. Astronomer Geoff Marcy discovers something shocking about a planet orbiting a star called 16 Cygnus b, located some 70 light-years away in the constellation of Cygnus, the Swan.
The planet was clearly in an elongated orbit, bringing the planet close to and then far from the host star. And this, of course, defied our expectations based on our own solar system, where all of the planets go around our sun in nearly circular orbits like phonograph grooves in a record.
Like a giant yo-yo in space, the gas giant swings back and forth across its solar system. That is like the Earth swooping 25 million miles closer to the Sun, then slinging past Mars, all the way out towards Jupiter every year. And like all of the gas giants in our solar system, this yo-yo planet might have an entourage of moons. Marcy speculates that one of these moons could be similar to Earth.
And here's where the interesting story begins. Imagine a rocky moon with lakes, oceans, maybe streams and waterfalls on the surface. The moon orbiting its planet, the two of them orbiting the host star.
Unlike the airless moon that circles the Earth, this moon is a world with extreme seasons. On Earth, the seasons are caused by the tilt of our planet. Here, they are caused by the elongated orbit.
These poor planets that are in these elongated elliptical orbits suffer terrible changes in their climate throughout a year.
As they make their closest approach, the yo-yo planet and its moon are blowtorched by the star. Summer begins. The atmosphere on the Earth-like moon is savaged with raging storms. Category 5 hurricanes on Earth are tiny eddies compared to the monster vortexes that form here. The clouds thicken as the water evaporates.
Temperatures rise dramatically. Any water or gases would heat up, and indeed the oceans would boil into steam, so you'd end up with a big steam bath.
During the peak of the summer, the entire moon is smothered in 800-degree temperatures. This is the closest approach to the star. During its 26-month orbit, the summer season is barely 2 months long. But what a season! The planet and its moon swing away from the furnace of the star. Temperatures fall to ranges we would find temperate and comfortable. With the coming of fall, the rains return to the parched and roasted moon. Dry ocean basins are replenished, and the seas rise to form new shorelines. Tranquility prevails as the yo-yo planet and its moon slip into the deep freeze of winter. Now, over 200 million miles from the star, the daytime sky is dark. Temperatures hover around 260 degrees below. Winters are long, lasting 17 months. With the coming of spring, the sun looms large in the skies over this hapless moon as the ice cracks and melts violently. Huge icebergs calve into a stormy and fast-rising ocean. For 2 preciously short periods, during the spring thaw and the autumn rains, the climate on this Earth-like moon is balmy and comfortable. At a distance of 93 million miles from the star, roughly the same distance as Earth from the Sun, the elliptical orbit of this planet and its moon crosses an area around the star some scientists call the Goldilocks zone. The conditions here are just right for life.
If you're too close to the star, then it's too hot. If you're too far away, then it's going to be too cold and everything's going to be icy. But then if you're right in the middle, it's just right.
Every star has a Goldilocks zone. Where that zone is depends on the size and temperature of the star. In our solar system, Venus marks the inner boundary and Mars the outer boundary. Earth and its abundance of life is right in the middle. The Yo-Yo planet passes through the Goldilocks zone twice a year. For 3.5 months during the spring as it races inbound, and again in the fall for 3.5 months as it hurtles back into the colder reaches of space. Could life survive the conditions outside the Goldilocks zone?
There could be life forms that are smart enough to hibernate, as do animals on the Earth during the winter season. If this sounds fantastic, I offer you the tidal zones on the Earth. On the tidal zones, life proliferates, of course, near the seashore, and they do so despite tides. The water coming in, covering many of the life forms, the water going out at low tide, and yet those species survive perfectly well.
The strange cycle of the Yo-Yo planet's orbit creates fleeting conditions suitable for life, but also for death. Some alien planets are even more bizarre. Imagine a world that has no star to orbit. Scientists speculate that our galaxy is teeming with rogue planets, adrift in the murky lanes of interstellar space. These are orphaned worlds, planets that are booted from their solar systems by the chaos of planetary migration. Astronomers call such worlds planemos.
Planemos are planets without a star. They're just drifting through the galaxy indefinitely.
What massive force would it take to kick a planet out of the solar system?
When a young star forms with a contingent of planets around it, many of those planets gravitationally interact with each other. They yank on each other, slingshot each other, so that one of them is ejected from the planetary system, voted off the island, if you will.
If you were, unfortunately, a resident on a planet that was kicked out by a collision or a near collision with another large object, you'd probably rapidly move out of the habitable zone.
There are hundreds of billions of these lost, wayward, poor, wandering planets out in our Milky Way galaxy with no parent star to warm them up.
Cold, dark, quiet. Because planemos have no sun, they are worlds without days or years. They keep vigil through an eternal night. Planemos are solitary wanderers, sentinels of the galaxy. Just because it's out there drifting in space doesn't mean a planemo is dead.
If the planemo is a rocky world, it could well have life on it.
A small rocky planemo without an atmosphere will slumber in extreme cold, far colder than the coldest winter day on our own South Pole. But a planemo large enough to retain an atmosphere traps the heat generated when the planet was first formed. It is the ultimate greenhouse effect. The heat and energy comes from the molten core deep inside the lonely planet. If the planemo is a gas giant like Jupiter, it may have a system of moons. The gravitational pull between the planemo and its moons creates friction, causing the interior of the moons to stay warm.
These moons could also have life on them, in the same way that Jupiter's moon Io has volcanoes and has a lot of heat energy being generated by interactions with Jupiter and the other moons.
If anything lives here, it will be single cells, like common bacteria found on Earth. Not complex life forms. Without a sun to provide photosynthesis, these tiny organisms derive their energy from the chemistry in the soil of the Planemo, or its moon. On Earth, there are similar conditions. Colonies of bacteria are found deep within mine shafts in South Africa. They have no access to oxygen nor light, and survive entirely on the chemicals they make from the surrounding dirt. Their metabolisms are extremely slow, and they reproduce only once every 1,000 years. If life dwells on a sunless Planemo, it could be organisms like them, marooned when their planet was young. While Planemos slumber undisturbed, there are worse places to be in the universe. Like in the company of this lethal pulsar, some 980 light-years from Earth, in the constellation of Virgo. From afar, a pulsar looks like a blinking light. But up close, pulsars machine gun their surroundings with deadly radiation. They are no place for planets. Yet something interferes with the precision of this pulsar. One explanation is that the anomaly is caused by a planet. But many astronomers are skeptical that planets orbiting a pulsar can exist.
The reason that's a problem is because pulsars are formed in these incredible explosions.
When a red giant star explodes, a titanic fireball known as a supernova unleashes as much energy in 1 minute as our sun generates in its lifetime.
When a star goes supernova, the shockwave is so immense it's hard to imagine any planet surviving that.
When the cosmic dust clears, all that remains is the crushed core of the red giant, pulsing in the heart of an expanding debris field. Matter blasted from the colossal explosion falls back to the pulsar and forms a disk. Within this chaos, a new world arises, born of fire and destruction, a planetary zombie raised from the carcass of the former red giant star.
It's amazing that planets could form in that environment.
A planet orbiting a pulsar will give you the feeling of being in a disco bar with a very strong strobe light, which is the pulsar.
Radiation from this stellar beast breaks down the organic molecules needed for life.
The pulsar has these very strong magnetic fields that are being spun around as the star is rotating quickly, and it's picking up any material, electrons, protons, and speeding them up and slinging them out at high speed. So it's like a solar wind with a vengeance.
I can't imagine that there would be much of an opportunity for even simple life, microbial life, to emerge and to flourish on a planet around a pulsar. Largely because if you were in the pulse, you'd be severely energized, and if you were not in the pulse, you would be completely devoid of energy.
The discovery of pulsar planets shows how new worlds can form in the wake of a star's destruction. No matter where a planet arises, the process of its birth is fraught with danger. Sometimes, the violence is so great, the end of the world comes before the beginning. 2007, Astronomers using the giant Gemini North telescope make a strange discovery in the Pleiades cluster some 400 light-years from Earth. A star known only by its catalog number, HD 23514, is surrounded by a giant donut-shaped cloud of dust and gas. The star in the middle of the donut shape is about 100 million years old. A cosmic toddler in astronomical terms. Our Sun is 45 times older. The conditions are perfect for planets to form. But spectral analysis finds something strange. The dust is utterly pulverized. Typically, a newborn star is surrounded by fledgling planets.
Planets form around the young star in a protoplanetary disk of gas and dust. And then these planets go on their merry way orbiting the star, not realizing that they're in an orbit that's too close to another planet.
Millions of years ago, two primordial planets orbiting HD 23514 are spinning toward doom. As the two worlds close in, tidal forces torque each planet from spheres to egg shapes. Nothing remains. The two worlds are annihilated, creating the dust and debris seen around star HD 23514. 4 billion years ago, a similar apocalypse came to Earth. A Mars-sized planet forms in roughly the same orbit as the newborn Earth. Like the planets at HD 23514, Earth and this Mars-sized body are barreling toward each other.
If you happen to be unlucky enough to be standing on a growing planet when it was in the process of still becoming the Earth, you might wake up one morning and notice that the sky was getting darker and darker as a Mars-sized body was coming at you within a period of less than an hour.
And when it hits, the shock wave is felt all over the planet, scouring the surface of the Earth. The collision obliterates one side of the planet. Molten rock sprays out into space. The entire globe is peppered by meteors and noxious vapor.
It would actually make hell look like a Bahamas vacation.
The debris field from the collision coalesces and forms our moon. It is a new beginning for our planet.
Collisions are part of the birth process for planetary systems. Building up a terrestrial planet is probably all about colliding pieces of rock together.
And all across the galaxy, colliding pieces of rock are forming terrestrial worlds that defy the imagination.
There is a new planet out there, a planet we were not aware of existing before.
It is not just one planet. It is a new type of planet. Earth on steroids.
I like to call them super-Earths. They're just like the Earth, except bigger, up to about 10 times the mass of the Earth. One family that the super-Earths resemble just like our own Earth. Continents, oceans. Some of them may be very dry, like Mars. And then another family that we call water worlds or ocean planets that are completely covered with water.
Welcome to Gliese 581c.
This planet was found by Michel Mayor, and it orbits with 2 other planets around a very small star.
It's only 20 light-years away in the constellation of Libra and is one of the smallest terrestrial planets found beyond our solar system. That doesn't mean Gliese 581c is small. It's still a super-Earth with 5 times the mass of our home planet. But it's the possibility of liquid water that excites scientists.
An ocean planet feels like being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, with no land inside, just water, puffy white clouds, and blue sky above you. The winds on the ocean world are going to be similar to that of the Earth. So it will be a very good place to sail.
The weather's absolutely perfect. Every day you get a clear blue sky and the sun just stays in the same place. Now how's that for weather prediction?
No land anywhere. Even miles beneath the surface.
This water layer would extend very far down, at least a quarter of the way down in the planet.
But as we dive deeper into the sea, the pressure builds. At 35,000 feet below the surface, we pass the point where the deepest oceans on Earth bottom out. We pass the 100,000-foot mark. The pressure is so great, water itself begins to take on surprising new forms. At a depth of 10 times the greatest ocean depth on Earth, we reach the bottom.
When you have a large amount of water, then at the bottom of an ocean, you will form very high pressure in excess of 1 million atmospheres. And that pressure will compress the liquid water, that is the ocean, into a state which we call Ice 7.
No, it's not like ice in your refrigerator. The molecules of water that are in the ice in your refrigerator are kind of all jumbled up. But if you form ice under very high pressure, then the water molecules can become ordered, they can become aligned.
I can show you a crystal that is a very good analog to Ice 7. This is halite, also known commonly as rock salt.
Ice 7 may exist within our own solar system. Europa, a moon of Jupiter, could possibly have a mantle of liquid water surrounded by a thick, icy crust. The pressure from the crust is so great that Ice 7 might exist deep within these uncharted seas. If we scale up and thaw out Europa, it could be a water world similar to Gliese 581c.
One could imagine that life could emerge on a water world. After all, water is essential to life on Earth.
Everywhere on Earth where there is water, there is life. You cannot find a sterile drop of water on Earth unless you put it in the microwave yourself.
On this water world, there could be bacteria or any kind of life in the ocean itself.
But not all of the super-Earths are water worlds teeming with life.
When we talk about super-Earths, we talked about 2 major families of mostly rocky with some water and mostly water with an endless ocean. But one has to add to those a 3rd family of probably very rare super-Earths and Earth-like planets, which are called carbon planets.
A carbon planet is unlike anything we've ever seen anywhere. A place with an alien chemistry, but loaded with very earthly treasures. Throughout our galaxy, there are planets barren and poor and inhospitable. But science is on the trail of a new type of planet, an entire world of treasure.
In our own solar system, in our sun and in all the stars nearby, there's always more oxygen than carbon. But if we think of a place in the universe where there's more carbon than oxygen, then planet formation is very different.
Spectral analysis shows carbon to be far more plentiful, 26,000 light-years away near the center of our galaxy. Planets that form here may contain a rich abundance of carbon. The morning sky on a carbon world would be anything but crystal clear and blue.
I'm picturing a yellow haze with black clouds of soot. And as you descended farther down in the atmosphere, I could imagine lakes that were made out of compounds like methane or gasoline. I'm picturing these bubbling, foul-smelling pits of black ooze, like an oil well.
With little or no water in the atmosphere, the air is made of carbon compounds.
Methane, butane, pentane, benzene, all these different kinds of carbon compounds that separate out when you refine gasoline. One day it might be raining benzene. The next day it might be raining butane.
Alien as carbon planets might seem, the air quality could be familiar to some.
The air in a very benzene-rich planet will resemble that of LA. A lot of small particles that unfortunately we are quite used to from the exhaust of cars.
Despite the pollution, carbon planets could come with a sparkling upside.
You might see diamond because the planet may have substantial quantities of pure carbon that it's formed out of. And pure carbon, when you compress it, tends to form into diamond.
The secrets of exotic planets like these are waiting to be discovered all across the galaxy. But astronomers won't be satisfied until they find the Holy Grail. A planet like our own, one that sustains life, the next Earth.
People always ask me, do I think we're going to find another planet like Earth? And I answer, absolutely.
Every star probably has planets roughly the same size as our Earth.
We think that essentially every star has several Earth mass or super Earth mass planets. So if you have, say, 200 billion stars in the galaxy, that may mean there are 400 billion Earths in the galaxy or more.
400 billion Earths. The Kepler Space Observatory is the first instrument capable of finding one of these planets.
Kepler is looking at the constellation Cygnus in the night sky at 100,000 stars, taking picture after picture after picture, minute after minute. And the goal of Kepler is simple: to look for stars among the 100,000 that dim.
When a star dims slightly, it means a planet passes in front, blocking some of the light. How long the star dims and how much light gets blocked will tell scientists about the size of the planet and the distance from its sun.
A good analogy for this is looking for the dip in the light that you would see from a searchlight if a small moth flew across the searchlight. And so it's a really tiny dip in the light as the planet transits.
It is a very powerful technique because it allows you to discover planets that are even smaller than the size of the Earth around stars similar to the Sun.
It is a technique that is changing the course of science.
We think we may be able to find a planet that is habitable in the next few years.
Scientists estimate the Kepler mission will find a minimum of 50 alien Earths.
One of the big questions that anybody looking for life beyond the Earth is facing today is, what if we don't recognize life even though we discover it?
Conditions on an alien Earth may cause life to evolve differently.
My hope is that we'll see some sign that will make our hairs stand up on the back of our necks.
Whatever that sign is, it will be the first chapter on the greatest scientific story ever told.
North America. Over 500 million people live beneath these majestic skies. There are also over 1 million known species floating above their heads. And now, perhaps something unknown. It has been seen in the skies over the California coast, the lush Pacific Northwest, the deserts of Arizona, and craggy limestone peaks of Mexico.
It was something alive. It was not a robot. It was like more like a being, like an entity.
Bulky, dark, slate grey in colour, and it was just coming straight towards us.
It had some sort of feet, an arm, and it was simply hanging. It didn't move at all. It was floating.
Eyewitnesses report seeing large, human-like creatures floating or flying hundreds of feet above them. Most appear to be wingless, and some are covered with a kind of cape or hard exterior suit. The beings hover or glide silently through the air. Police reports refer to the sightings as unidentified flying humanoids. The witnesses question whether the floating objects are natural, man-made, or the manifestation of a more mysterious phenomenon. But one police officer believes that they're very real.
I start to follow it, and to my surprise, I run into a creature that terrified me.
Officer Leonardo Samaniego was tailing a robbery suspect on the streets of Monterrey when he had an experience that still haunts his dreams.
I see something like a black bag falling down on me when I pass under the tree. I step on the brakes and see a silhouette.
Samaniego quickly realized it was something unimaginable.
When it stands up in front of me, I stop the car and first of all, try to make out what it is.
What he saw appeared female, but didn't seem human.
She starts to hide from the light. She closed her eyes. She had completely black eyes, but I couldn't see any eyelids or anything. She does this, and then quickly turns to face me. I can see that the hat she's wearing goes down like this, as if it were tied down. When she comes down on her back, she doesn't touch the ground, and she's like this, with her arms open. She comes down, and that's when I ask for backup.
Samaniego frantically radioed for help as the creature ominously floated towards him, ready to attack.
She starts walking. I put the car in reverse. When I arrive at the street corner, I hear her crash against the windshield. And then I see her like this, and I move back, scared. I didn't know what to do.
Samaniego was knocked unconscious by the flying creature during his encounter.
Later, another officer found me and woke me up. They say that she slapped me 3 times. I don't know. I wasn't aware of anything then.
Yo no supe.
For many months afterwards, the memory of this creature's face gave the officer nightmares.
Still, every night, I was dreaming about those eyes. With my eyes closed, I could still see her gaze and her face, all of this and her eyes. Her eyes were very present and very, very black. I used to get scared, and I used to wake up scared and crying.
Asustado, llorando.
Even more shocking than Samaniego's account is the fact that there may be video evidence to prove it. In the skies above Santa Monica, California, a bulky humanoid shape is reported floating over this wealthy Los Angeles suburb. Here, a dark, human-like form is seen above craggy peaks near Monterrey, Mexico, close to Samaniego's encounter. Further to the south in Mexico City, several airborne humanoids are filmed drifting above this metropolis of 22 million people. This strange phenomenon has been reported across North America, with similar objects reported in the skies above Arizona, Wisconsin, and Washington State. This video footage will be examined and analyzed by MonsterQuest using sophisticated forensic techniques. But some experts are skeptical that the video is even real.
When I first hear about flying humanoids of this kind, my thought is it's hard to distinguish it from a hoax.
Joe Nickell, a researcher of unexplained phenomena, says that if the videos aren't hoaxes, then the only explanation could be misidentification.
The other possibility is that it's very lightweight, perhaps helium-filled craft, such as you would get from a balloon or a cluster of balloons.
Nickell will only be convinced by hard proof, and the evidence that may already exist in the form of a corpse found in Metepec, just 32 miles southwest of Mexico City. Now MonsterQuest will launch an investigation into this bizarre phenomenon. The expedition team has traveled to Monterrey, Mexico, the location of many of the sightings of the flying humanoid creatures.
Well, the nation of Mexico is a very magical and mysterious place.
Ken Gerhard, an author from Texas, will lead the search in the location of Officer Samaniego's spine-chilling encounter.
Whatever he encountered that night was very real to him. So my impression is that Leonardo did have some type of encounter with a non-human entity, if you will. It's also interesting to note that many other people in the neighborhood of Guadalupe had reported a similar type of creature flying around, and in fact police officers came forward after the fact saying that they had also seen this being.
All the eyewitness descriptions that he's reviewed point to a creature that is completely unknown to man.
There's an apparent lack of wings, and all of the animals that we recognize in science, birds, bats, or what have you, of course they rely on wings and constant motion and inertia to remain airborne. That we can't rule out the possibility that we could be dealing with something beyond our realm of understanding. Interdimensional beings, if you will.
In a rugged canyon outside of Monterrey, the team will search for traces of an unknown presence. The area is surrounded by a massive limestone mountain range, which is riddled with caves.
Monterrey is very, very interesting because of the location, because it is sort of pocketed and surrounded by these craggy peaks and mountainous areas. And there are legends and reports that go back here centuries.
Gerhard has enlisted Marco Reynoso, a local investigator, and Sergio Estavillo, a wilderness guide, to help him.
Yes. This is, of course, Monterey. Geographically speaking, what are we looking at here as far as what do we have in terms of the surrounding mountains, caves, and so forth? What is the lay of the land, so to speak?
Yes, here we have the Cerro de las Mitras. It's a mountain where you can find different mines and caves. This part, here we have El Cerro de la Silla. Is like
Reynoso has collected details of numerous local sightings of humanoid creatures.
I have many reports of other policemen in the Santa Catarina River, and other reports in other zone, Apodaca County.
Shortly after beginning their search, the team meets a local rancher who tells them about unusual aerial activity.
They do come down close to where people are, because a short while ago in the hills of Guitarrita, some members of my family were around and a UFO came down. I've seen them over there, and they've come down there by the Guitarrita. They've never harmed anybody, but people are shocked and get scared.
It is believed by locals that the creatures are nocturnal cave dwellers. As a result, Gerhard has outfitted the team with night vision equipment and targeted a cave 5,000 feet above sea level to start the search.
Caves have been very, very good in terms of discoveries of different types of fossils, cave paintings. These were, of course, habitations for thousands of years of the early indigenous peoples all over the world, as well as animals. Any type of animal might seek refuge in a cave. They're excellent hiding places.
The team reaches the opening and enters the limestone caves.
If there were any type of undiscovered animal or creature, whether it be a gigantic form of bat, a surviving pterosaur from our prehistoric past, they would need a place to hide.
Looks like there might be some different passageways and things up here ahead.
200 yards into the cave, something captures Ken's imagination.
There's one very strange looking sort of shape or formation. And I get a very, very eerie feeling being down in this cave.
Monster Quest is searching for unidentified flying humanoids, known to aggressively attack people. Ken Gerhard believes the same extraordinary phenomenon may have been witnessed centuries ago by North America's earliest civilizations.
Within the different legends and folklores of Mexico, we find many references to these flying humanoids or winged humanoid type creatures. Specifically here in the mountains around Monterey, we hear reports of the legends of the Birdman, which is described as a humanoid figure with, of course, the wings, talons, and other characteristics of a bird.
Mayan legends tell of hybrid creatures that stalked local villages.
There's the Camazotz, or Zots, the death bat. And this is depicted in Maya engravings as a anthropomorphic creature with the body of a man and the head of a bat. And it's often associated with sacrifice and death.
Many believe some of these bizarre mythological creatures had extraterrestrial origins.
We have all of these references to the gods from the skies, if you will, visiting the early indigenous peoples of Mexico. But we have these links to possible alien visitations, UFOs, that date back to the Maya.
In the 1940s and 50s, accounts began to emerge from across the United States of similar sightings.
place called Chehalis, Washington, several people reported seeing this humanoid-type figure floating up about 200 feet in the air. Appeared to be wearing some type of control panel on his chest and making sort of a whizzing sound as he passed over the countryside.
In 1953, a disturbing encounter was described in detail by a family in Houston, Texas.
Suddenly they noticed this silhouette of what they first mistook to be a large moth moving across the lights. And it eventually settled in the branch of a large tree, and it was then that they could make out the shape or form of a humanoid figure. And they estimated that he stood about 6.5 feet tall, and they could clearly see that he was dressed in a black paratrooper uniform, complete with boots and a helmet. He also appeared to have some type of bat-like wings attached to his body and perhaps a cape. And a short while later there was a whoosh and a flash of light across the street. It seemed to be something not of the natural world, perhaps something more alien in nature.
No physical evidence of the creature was found until 2007, when workers in a southern suburb of Mexico City discovered what they believed to be physical proof of a humanoid presence.
I believe we are in front of something extraordinary, and we have to learn more about this.
Jaime Maussan, a journalist and investigator, has possession of the corpse of an infant creature. He believes it is a species connected to the flying humanoids reported in this area.
Back in May 2007, something happened in a ranch where they captured a strange creature. The owner of the ranch came to me and brought this creature, saying that probably was an extraterrestrial or something else.
This photograph shows the creature when it was reportedly still alive.
Its manner was very aggressive. It wanted to get loose or attack people.
Augustine Escobar was one of the few people to see the creature before it died.
When I arrived on the spot, they had it in a rat trap and we started observing it. I only saw it for about 5 minutes. To me it was strange, totally strange, like a type of rat in between rat and monkey. It looked like it didn't have any skin nor hair. It had fangs, a large head. I didn't see it for very long because, to be honest, it scared me a bit. Because when you tried to move in closer, it threw itself against you.
He is convinced this aggressive beast is not of earthly origin.
I think it must be an extraterrestrial, because I've never seen a similar creature from this world.
The Monster Quest science team will try to discover the biological identity of the mummified specimen. The first step is DNA analysis.
We're considering taking a piece from the tail to be able to take it to the laboratory and analyze whether there's DNA. And see what this DNA could be, to compare it. So we're going to proceed and take the sample. We're going to be very careful. I'm going to put on a pair of gloves and place it in a sterile container to eliminate any possible contamination.
The expedition team is exploring a cave at La Huasteca Canyon, looking for physical traces of a similar creature. The team places light sticks along the route so they can find their way out.
Pretty smooth.
These caves are nesting places for bats, birds, and other native species. But the team thinks they may also be hiding something else.
Well, first thing I've noticed is sort of a scent or a smell, something I haven't noticed so far. Been higher up in the cave. This area down
They find a long vertical shaft, which could be a perfect hiding place for a flying creature.
Looks like it's very deep. Maybe at least 50 feet, if not more.
Night vision equipment allows the team to visually inspect the bottom of the shaft.
Looks like it's about 50-foot drop, and then it kind of veers off to the right there. But it's impossible to tell from this angle what if anything is down there at that point. There's one very strange looking sort of shape or formation. I just can't make it out. Well, certainly I get a very, very eerie feeling being down in this cave. It's taken us quite a while to get down here to this point, and we still don't know what lies beyond there.
We talk with a lot of people that live near here, and they tell the same stories. They describe them the same way. So it's difficult to be a coincidence. I think this is something.
Monster Quest is searching for evidence of the phenomenon of unidentified flying humanoids. This video was taken in Mexico City in June 2005. The person who shot it believes that he captured something never before seen by humans.
I don't know. I can only say that it was something unknown.
Horacio Roquette's morning started off like any other.
That day was a weekday and I started working early, at 7 in the morning. Only, I overslept a little.
But as he approached the street, something made him glance up at the sky.
It was like intuition. So I turned around and looked towards the sky. And I saw something out of the ordinary. So what I did then was to run back for the camera.
Horacio and his sister had the presence of mind to capture this strange object on videotape.
The moment I turned on the camera and start filming it, it started moving. It's incredible. I turned on the camera and started filming, and it almost appeared as if it noticed me. You could see it was heavy, in a dark color, a type of humanoid. It looked like some sort of spacesuit. Something was very strange. I remember there being a lot of light. Maybe it was emanating some sort of energy.
Everything gets into the computer, everything gets analyzed, compared, authenticated.
Jim Horrocks, a law enforcement video analyst in Los Angeles, would use state-of-the-art technology to examine the footage.
So what we're seeing is the raw footage from Horacio in Mexico, handheld video, very shaky.
The first step is to try and stabilize the image.
Because of the shake in his hands, the subject matter flies all over the screen, and so what we attempt to do with motion stabilization is to center that unknown object in the center of the screen.
Next, Horrocks searches for a single frame of video that can be enhanced.
That's a pretty clear frame there. There's very little contrast on this, but we can tighten that up a little bit.
Then, by zooming in, Horrocks reveals each individual pixel of the video.
That's at 300%. You still have the round shape, larger at the top, smaller at the bottom. You have something protruding from it.
He examines the eerie reddish glow more closely. Either the object is emitting light, or it is reflecting light from some other source, like the morning sun.
If we assume that this is correct, that it's 7:15 in the morning in June in somewhere in Mexico, the sun hasn't quite risen over these buildings in which to create a lit courtyard. Is it possible that the sun is illuminating and causing these highlights, these reflections? Certainly.
Horrocks tries a second frame, which reveals more detail and definition in the object.
And essentially, I'm just searching through the timeline to find a spot where we get the most detail possible.
Another frame in particular shows an eerily human shape.
So I think this image here, when people view this back and this image sticks in their mind as saying this is a flying humanoid because you have a head shape and legs and arms, and he appears to have his hand on his hip and he's waving to us. I can see where people could come to that conclusion.
Joe Nickell remains skeptical. He says that the sightings of flying humanoids can be explained by a tradition at Mexican celebrations.
My understanding is that in Mexico, there's at weddings, clusters. That in Mexico, there's at weddings, clusters of balloons are released. If there is already some mythology of beings in the sky, then that creates a context for identifying it as humanesque in some kind of way.
Nickell will test the theory that the sightings are misidentified helium-filled balloons.
Well, these are clusters of balloons such as might be released at a celebration, and or of course for some other purpose. And we're simply seeing how these look when we send them aloft, see if they are recognizable as balloon clusters. We'll see what it looks like. Okay, and you can send it up. Okay, now they're scattering like I thought they might. Looking a little scattered from here. But I'm wondering if they maybe should be in a little tighter. Certainly, if one were doing this for any kind of hoax, we want them to stay together. Let's see.
Nickell tries to cinch the next cluster tighter.
Okay, this should do better. Release. Much better already. Only it's gone out of sight. It's better because it was not pulled apart. It needs to look at all like an unidentified flying humanoid. Rule number one is that it needs to stay together.
He encases the final cluster in black plastic.
Well, here's a neat way to keep the cluster from looking like a cluster. And if someone were deliberately hoaxing such an effect, this would be one of many ways to produce an effect. Well, it's certainly keeping together better.
The best evidence that the team has found remains the unidentified corpse. The doctors are having trouble agreeing on just what it is.
If it's not a primate, what is it? Here we're facing something terrestrial or something unknown.
Monster Quest is investigating a strange and unnerving phenomenon. Flying, human-like forms. They have been reported floating in the skies of several North American cities.
I definitely had the sense that it was aware of me.
In 2004, Ed Sherwood witnessed an airborne human form above the streets of Santa Monica, California.
I noticed a dark object, bulky looking object flying towards us but making no sound. At first I thought it was a helicopter, but at the distance that it would have been, I should have heard something.
Sherwood began to videotape this strange object.
It looked oddly humanoid, looked large, about 7 feet perhaps in height, 3 to 4 feet wide, maybe a foot deep, bulky, dark slate grey in color, and it was just coming straight towards us.
He believes that what he saw was not a known object, either natural or man-made.
It didn't sway, didn't bob, it didn't act like tethered balloons or a parade character that had got loose. Inflatable object. It never seemed to be lighter than air. I totally felt that it was there, aware that I was there.
Ed Sherwood and numerous other eyewitnesses are convinced that what they are seeing is a conscious, living creature. The proof may be in a Mexico City laboratory. Monster Quest has summoned a team of forensic scientists to test the bizarre baby humanoid specimen that was trapped and killed in 2007.
Let's not forget we are forensic scientists and we want to get to the truth of this historic occurrence.
Dr. Angel Gutierrez and his colleagues initially believed this tiny specimen was in fact a small species of monkey that had been skinned.
It appeared to have no covering tissue, that the muscle was exposed. That caught our interest, and first, our studies seem to show that this has been tampered with, that it was a little monkey that had been skinned after its death.
Further investigation revealed that the creature did have skin, but of a very unusual kind.
It does have it in a very rudimentary and not very common form, but it does have covering tissue. Therefore, we can draw the conclusion that this being has not been tampered with.
The team's review of the specimen has revealed that it has semi-human characteristics.
When you see the ankle, when you see the feet of the creature, they're very human. When you see the hands of the creature, they're very human.
The creature's feet are much shorter than those of small primates, like monkeys. The scientists decide that, like humans, the creature may have stood on 2 legs.
We came to the conclusion that it had the ability to stand up straight because it has a double arch. This is one arch, and this is another. These arches allows us to determine that this being had the capacity to stand on 2 feet.
The shape of the eye sockets provides clues about the creature's visual capabilities.
Its eye sockets are too big, which makes us believe that it had a very good and complex sense of vision.
Intrigued by this strange beast, the team turns to state-of-the-art medical imaging.
We have a specimen and we do not know what it is.
By using MRI scans of the creature, they're able to construct a 3D computer model of the body. This allows for further insight into the creature's anatomy.
Our attention is drawn to the rear cavity, which is where the brain structures are. That's where you find the organs that take charge of equilibrium, fast movements, coordination, and fine movements. Usually, you find a ratio of between 4 and 1. In a human, we will find a certain ratio between the rear cavity and the brain. This specimen has a rear cavity which is bigger.
The creature seems to be highly irregular. The hairless skin, the shape of the brain, the large eye sockets, the human-like feet, and the makeup of the inner ear all point to something unknown to modern science. The team must rely on DNA tests to cast light on the mysterious beast's origins.
Here, what's interesting is that this is historical and valuable, because it's put science to the test.
Monsterquest has traveled North America, investigating spine-chilling reports of unidentified humanoid forms. This police officer was physically attacked in his patrol car by an aggressive flying humanoid. This man witnessed a bulky floating form over the streets of Santa Monica. These forensic scientists are examining an unknown specimen discovered near Mexico City. And this couple videotaped a glowing man-shaped object that was floating several hundred feet above their apartment block. Jim Horrocks is examining the video gathered to determine its authenticity. Horrocks inspects the clip of the suspected glowing humanoid filmed above Mexico City to determine whether it might have been faked.
There are no indications that this has been faked or photoshopped or manipulated. Some of the unique characteristics of cameras have kind of been maintained in the image itself, so I think it's safe to say that while the scene may be constructed in some way, I don't think there's any problems with this tape.
Horrocks examines footage of the Monterey area, close to the location of the police officer's sighting.
There's a bit more contrast and color to deal with than in the previous images. The object itself seems to be following a fixed trajectory, almost as if it's going down a cabling.
Generating a black and white outline of the moving object shows it has a solid and unvarying shape, unlike a balloon cluster.
It seems to be smaller at the bottom and the top and kind of bulging in the sides, and as it progresses along that doesn't seem to change.
Horrocks suggests an alternative explanation.
There seems to be a bit of a spike to that color information at the top of it that would indicate some kind of hook that's allowing it to be suspended. And so this could very well be some kind of gondola or basket to move cement, rock, what have you, across a cement works or rock quarry.
The other images are not clear enough to make a definitive identification.
I don't think it's a recognizable object. Someone might argue that it's a balloon, a weather balloon, party balloon, something of that nature, but is it a flying humanoid? There's not enough information to determine that.
Joe Nickell has launched and filmed several homemade balloon clusters. He now compares his videos with those of the suspected flying humanoids.
My first reaction is that it's kind of a disaster because the cluster, in the heavy winds that we have, the balloons are just going in all directions.
Nickell believes a tighter cluster looks more convincing and more humanoid-like.
Now, that's beginning to look at times it looks very much like an unidentified flying humanoid when you freeze frame it. That's very similar.
He concludes that some of the sightings could indeed be misidentified balloons.
I think absolutely they could be balloon clusters, some of the sequences that we've studied.
The Monster Quest expedition team is looking for proof that the flying humanoid is not just a recent phenomenon. Deep in La Huasteca Canyon, Ken Gerhard has found traces of the earliest human inhabitants of northern Mexico.
What we have here are some ancient petroglyphs or carvings in this rock wall, and from what I understand, these are possibly as old as 3,000 years old. We have a variety of different types of animals depicted here. Most interesting here is some type of bird-like animal.
Gerhard finds other marks on the canyon walls that indicate a different kind of aerial presence, something that might be connected to the local sightings of strange humanoid forms.
I do notice one interesting shape up here, which is a sort of a circular object. I believe the senor that we spoke to on the way in indicated that he felt this might be a representation of some type of flying object, if you will, unidentified flying object. But of course, due to the stylized nature of these petroglyphs, it's very hard to discern exactly what we're looking at here. These are obviously very symbolic in nature.
For Gerhard, the experience of the canyon extends beyond his human senses.
I get a very, very odd feeling standing here. It's very spiritual, very otherworldly. I can certainly understand why the local people, why the indigenous people felt like this was a sacred place.
Ken Gerhard and the expedition team feel they have only just begun to unlock the secrets of the flying humanoids.
I understand that the chances of finding such a strange creature, though it would be monumental, is fairly remote.
Gerhard is convinced this rugged terrain merits further exploration.
The Sierra Madre Mountains are just vast and uninhabited and unexplored. Certainly if there are any creatures or animals unknown to science in North America, this would be an excellent place for them to live.
The Monster Quest science team has finished its analysis of the strange and unidentified corpse.
If it's not a primate, what is it? Here we're facing something terrestrial or something unknown. As a scientist, I personally have to say that it's probably a species in evolution or an unknown species.
Es una especie en evolución o una especie desconocida para nosotros.
The DNA testing confirmed this theory. No identifiable genetic material was found, and the results cannot be explained.
We analyze bone and skin and hair, and then we don't have nothing, and that is a surprise for us. What happened? I don't know.
This Monster Quest investigation has uncovered some interesting facts. An expert has reviewed the numerous videos of these creatures. Analysis shows that the footage was not faked, but cannot be explained. The science team has investigated the unknown specimen and found that it shows distinct differences from all known species. And the team has also cataloged many eyewitness accounts of people who saw unknown flying humanoids.
No lo sé, simplemente lo que puedo comentar es que...
All I can say is that it was something unknown. You can make your own hypothesis and you ask yourself a lot of questions when you see something like that. But it's outside of your reasoning and logic.
Razonamiento de tu lógica.
Just don't tell me it's a fraud, because the video is as true as me.
I didn't actually believe in witches, ghosts, or anything like that. Stories and legends, yes. But that I would believe in witches or the devil? No. After this, I found out that they do exist.
Después de eso ya me di cuenta de que sí existen.